Too long. Okay. Everybody situated here? Okay. Good afternoon, everybody. Today I'll do the usual COVID-19 update, and then I'm going to turn it over to Andrew French, who is the chair of the Kansas Corporation Commission, to talk about the weather. I'll start the briefing with our Public Health Hero of the Week. Today I want to recognize Brandy Bray. She is the Cloud County Health Department Administrator. In addition to all of her usual administrative duties, Brandy has been incredibly hands-on throughout the pandemic. She's been on the front lines conducting testing, contact tracing, vaccinating, and much more. She's had to be a caretaker for many of her staff who became ill with COVID-19. And then at some point she had to pull double duty, had to work from home remotely when her children contracted the virus. Cloud Countyans are blessed to have Brandy Bay watching over them, and on behalf of all Kansans, I want to thank you very much, Brandy, for all you're doing. Next, we'll go to the numbers. Since Monday, Kansas has reported 1,267 new positive cases, 115 new deaths. That brings us to a total of 288,717 cases, 9,002 hospitalizations, and 4,521 deaths. So as case numbers continue to decline and vaccinations increase, I know that everyone is anxious to return to normal. We've been anticipating that now for about a year. We all want to go to a movie, we want to have dinner with friends and family, and we want to take a vacation. And maybe most of all, we want our kids back in the classroom. We all know that virtual school is not ideal. It creates a myriad of challenges for our students, their parents, the teachers, and the districts. Closing school buildings last March was a necessary step in confronting all of the unknowns about the virus at the time. But we know prolonged remote learning is not sustainable. That is why today I'm announcing my administration's back-to-school vaccine plan. Under the plan, counties will receive additional shipments of vaccine doses explicitly earmarked for K-12 teachers and staff. Those will be in addition to the doses the counties already received from KDHE to vaccinate others eligible in Phase 2. KDHE is coordinating this approach with local health departments and local school districts through the State Department of Education. In addition to vaccinating K-12 teachers and staff, we will also provide free rapid results testing supplies to our schools. The emphasis on vaccinating K-12 teachers and staff, the free testing supplies, along with continued adherence to other mitigation strategies, will allow us to bring students safely back to in-person learning. I want to make clear that we are able to implement the back-to-school vaccination plan because Kansas is receiving substantially more doses than we had been. 4 weeks ago, we were receiving approximately 45,000 doses per week. Last week, we received about 90,000. And the White House told us earlier this week that we should be receiving approximately 115,000 doses. In addition, the federal pharmacy program, where the feds send doses directly to the pharmacies, that adds another 9,000 to 10,000 doses to our weekly supply. And CVS and Walgreens are returning unused doses from the pharmacy partnership program, which is pretty much completed. I know that there's been concern that Kansas is ranked near the bottom of the number of vaccines administered, at least on the CDC website. We know that indeed Kansans are getting vaccinated, but that information is not making it from providers to the state system and then on to the CDC. Some of this is caused by human error, but by and large, it is a technology issue. And we are working with the IT vendor to remedy the issue. In the meantime, though, we will be putting in place a temporary workaround that should make a huge difference in reporting beginning next week, and I'll give you more information on that next week. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to Andrew French, the Commissioner of the Kansas Corporation Commission, to discuss current weather and utility issues.
Thank you, Governor Kelly. I am Andrew French, Chair of the Kansas Corporation Commission, and I will give a brief update on where we are with the energy supply issues now. As you all know, we did experience coordinated blackouts Monday, midday, and Tuesday morning. SPP, the Southwest Power Pool, and our utilities gave us every indication that additional coordinated blackouts would occur this morning. But I'm happy to report that we did make it through our peak with SPP narrowly having enough power to meet that demand. The drivers of that good news were, first, that we were able to import a good amount of power from our neighboring regions, and second, the energy usage in our region, it did come in lower than SPP's forecasts, which are usually really accurate. So I think what I would emphasize is that tells me that our conservation measures by our residents and our businesses are likely making the difference in preventing blackouts this morning, and we thank you for that. Conservation has been really important to keep the lights on for everyone and to keep the natural gas flowing. We also received some very good news just a couple hours ago. I got an alert from SPP letting us know that while we remain in their emergency operations, they dropped their alert level to an EEA1, which would be 2 notches below where they're calling for coordinated blackouts. So we've stepped off the ledge just a bit. We are still concerned about late this afternoon and the evening peak of energy usage, and then probably a little more concern around tomorrow morning's peak. These will be critical hurdles before we think the situation will start to stabilize. So please do continue conservation measures. Another note of caution, our generating plants have been running really hard in extreme weather conditions for a couple of weeks now. This puts them under stress and risk of malfunction or failure. Energy supplies are still at a premium, so if we were to lose a major generation source, we could see further interruptions. Again, our hope is that we can get through the next day or so, get into warmer temperatures without that happening, and as temperatures warm, the strain on the energy system will ease. So that's where we are right now, cautious optimism, but we are still operating under emergency conditions, so some reason for continued conservation measures. Thank you.
We'll take questions.
Yes, Governor, on the back to school plan, so how many doses a week how many shots a week are you anticipating will go to teachers and staff?
I think that KDHE is working to set up that schedule. The doses, they're working with the local health departments and with the individual school districts to figure out the numbers that are needed in places. And then obviously we're not going to have enough to do every teacher, every staff person next week. So whatever that number is that we need to reach, we will structure the distribution to meet that need over time.
Do you know the Senate President has introduced a bill that would require all schools to offer in-person learning to all students by as of March 26th?
Well, I hope we can get some of them back sooner than that. That's some schools have started to do that. Some counties have already started to focus on teachers and staff in the schools in anticipation of being able to bring kids back. We all know that this has not been a good situation, that kids are losing learning time, and that parents are being driven nuts by having their kids home, and employers probably productivity has been down because we've had to keep the schools closed. So I'm very enthusiastic about getting this program up, running, and over so that we can get our schools open full-time, all the time for our kids.
Governor, some states have been limited in vaccine distribution given the dangerous conditions the colder weather has caused. Some have had to cancel or reschedule appointments. How has the weather impacted the state's ability to roll out vaccines?
Yeah, there's no doubt that this weather has impacted everything. FedEx and UPS who've been used to do a lot of shipments. Their headquarters in Memphis and Kalamazoo, Michigan, I believe, have been impacted by the weather, and so we're seeing some delays on shipments. hopefully as the weather improves, that will stop being a problem. We'll get the doses and we'll get them out to folks.
So Governor Kelly, K-12 is on the vaccine distribution plan, but some folks are wondering, will higher ed, why was higher ed left out of the vaccine priority plan, and are your plans to maybe put them in the priority plan?
Yeah, no, they are already, some of them are already in phase 2. If there are, classes or departments where, they can't learn remotely, they have to come in, it's a lab or something like that. Those folks are already eligible in phase 2. And we're going to leave it like that because I think, it made sense to do that because the needs are very different on campuses. Those are like entire communities in of themselves. So, a blanket, eligibility doesn't make any sense in that situation.
Governor, we were hearing.
Wait, can I go over here?
Regarding the severe weather, what have you been hearing from the federal government and Jeff Science about vaccine distribution plans given the situation we've seen the past couple days?
Well, I think they're continuing. I was just on a call with the White House earlier this week, and it was there that they told us that we'd be seeing this increase, and we're expecting really it's across the nation it's about 2.5 million more doses will be coming out. So if you calculate that, that'll probably give us 25,000 more. And their plan is to continue doing that, and they're guaranteeing that for the next 3 weeks, but that doesn't mean that they won't actually even increase it as we go forward. So it's just really good news. I have to say that. We'd love to be able to have enough to do everybody tomorrow, but it's getting better all the time.
Governor, if I could also ask a question to KCC after. We were hearing some people having problems with the Bank of America debit cards they're using for KDOL to file their claims or receive money. Some are, however, saying that it hasn't been deposited to their accounts. So I wasn't sure if you were briefed on that yet, or if anyone was able to tell you what's happening there, because they've had to switch from, I guess, Green Dot to Bank of America. They just want to know what the next step should be.
Yeah, I have heard about that issue, and I know that Labor was working with Bank of America to resolve it.
Governor Kelly, if we're supposed to be conserving energy and because of inclement weather, we're worried about power outs, blackouts, why are we having the Sunflowers showdown, the big basketball game that's going to suck all the why?
I suppose we could just cancel everything, and that would save a lot of power. But the last time I ordered a shutdown, what happened? So I think I've got to trust the judgment of those folks who are on different events and different things in different counties to make that determination. I think overall, like Chairman French said, people in Kansas have been great. They've been living in the dark, and really not doing laundry, not doing dishes, at peak time, and that's been incredibly helpful, and it's worked so far. Let's cross our fingers that everybody continues to do that tonight, tomorrow morning, and get us through this.
I have a question for KCC. Mr. French, what could you tell us about the investigation that's supposed to be taking place? Could you elaborate a little bit more on some of the specific concerns you're going to be looking into?
Sure. Well, I think I'd clarify, we're still dealing with energy supply emergency right now, making sure that everyone continues to have power, the power grid remains stable, everybody continues to have natural gas. So the investigation is not open yet. We're dealing with the emergency. There will be time for investigation. We'll be asking a lot of questions at our level. There will be a lot of questions asked at the federal level. There's sort of two different issues. There's an issue of natural gas. What happened to our supply? What happened to the prices? Why did they spike the levels they did? On the electric side, we'll be having discussions about whether we have a robust enough amount of resources, whether we have a hard enough grid, but those questions will be answered over the coming months and potentially years.
Can wind turbines, can they actually, I just want the rumor or whatever, can they actually freeze where you can't run them, and does that have something to do with, and they're also saying that coal can freeze and you can't, can you just explain that a little bit?
So there's been a lot of discussion of this over the last few days, and I'll just say, everybody's got a little bit of a point. And as usually, the answer is somewhere in the middle. There are some reductions in output from wind when you get this cold weather. There are also reductions from the coal plants with their piles of coal freezing when you get this weather. And we've also had malfunctions and failures at gas plants. So everything is being impacted there. It's not one or the other. I would tend to say that the wind issue, the one nuance I would give to that is that wind generally has kind of come in where it was forecast to come in. So while wind is not, I sort of think the wind debate is irrelevant to whether we have the supply or not. We knew what wind amount we were going to get. And that, at times it was enough to be helpful. At times there was very little energy coming from that resource. But there have been other issues, things that maybe we were counting on that didn't come through, and those would be issues. But to be really clear, the biggest issue is the weather, and it's the unbelievable and unprecedented demand on the system, and everything else is kind of secondary to that. I mean, we're dealing with a weather emergency here, which has put a lot of stress on the system. So that's where we are with those items.
But, Mr. French, don't we have to contemplate that this emergency situation will become more common because of climate change and the extremes in weather wrought by global carbon emissions, that what we see as a once in 85-year event may, because of climate change, become a once every 10-year event?
Yeah. So I'm not going to pretend to be the expert on whether this type of event is going to be commonplace in the future, but I do think that has a place. As we investigate this moving forward, we of course have to evaluate how common this is. And I've made this comment to other folks. I mean, you can spend an infinite amount of money on your electric grid, and you can have a grid that almost couldn't fail. But you might be making some investments that are only used once every 50, 85 years to save yourself. They're only used once. So there obviously has to be a balance there of how robust do you want the grid to be. And part of that is figuring out how common these types of events will be. I am quite certain that will go into the calculus as we look at this in the future.
Thank you. Thank you very much.